In this video, or maybe a couple videos, I'll be showing you how to build, wire, and code this Arduino Smart Car. And let's go ahead before we get started, just look at a quick demo of what it's going to do once it's completely finished. Okay, so the first thing you want to do is take both of your base plates and remove the brown covering. To do that, you just want to find one of the corners and try to peel up the brown part. This can be a little bit difficult and it can take some time. And if you don't get on one corner, you can try on a different corner too. So there we go. So we got it started, and then slowly just peel it away. That way we can try to get it all in one piece. So if you try to go too fast, it'll rip and then you have to try to take off the smaller pieces. So just try to go slow and try to get everything in one piece if you can. Okay, so we have most of it off, and then just go ahead and remove the extra parts that didn't come off the first time. All right, flip it over and do the same thing on the other side. Okay, for this step, you're going to need your 4 DC motors. You're going to need your 4 motor mounts and 8 screws that come from this bag right here, the one that says motor on it. These screws are the longest ones in the bag, so they should be pretty easy to find. And you're going to need 8 of those because we're going to use 2 for each motor. Okay, before we get started, make sure your motors are facing the same direction as mine. So I have 2 with the clear or the silver part facing me, and I have 2 that are facing away from me, but for each of those motors, the wires are facing inward. Okay, so what we're going to do is we're going to take one of our long screws and one of our motors, and there's 2 holes on the motor. The screw is going to go from the outside to the inside. And then put another screw on the top one. So when you're doing this, you always want the screws to be facing inward. So on this one over here, I would go from the outside and then push it in. Okay, I still have my screws facing inward, and then I'll finish up the last two. Okay, so when you finish putting in the screws, it should look like this. So just double check to make sure all your screws are facing the inside. Next, we're going to use our motor mounts. So the motor mounts look like this right here. And what you want to do is you want to check so on the bottom and the top, if you look inside of the holes, one side will be threaded and the other side won't. So you want to find the side that's threaded, which means it looks like a screw will be able to go into it. And you want to have that facing down when you put it onto the motor. So here is the side that's threaded. So when I put it onto the motor, I want to make sure it's facing down. So my threaded side is on the bottom, and then I'm going to take it and push it onto the motor. And I'm going to do that for each of them. So I'm going to find the threaded side. So in this case, it's right here. So facing down, and then push it onto the motor. Make sure that your wires aren't in between it. So if the wires are in between it, just move them out of the way. Okay. And then just finishing up the other two. So find the threaded side and make sure that's facing down. You can use your screwdriver to finish it up. Okay, and then from the same bag that you got the screws and the motor mounts from, you're going to find 8 of the washers. Not the washers, the nuts. So you're going to find 8 of these. And you're going to screw that on. Okay, and once you have them as tight as you can with your hand, what you want to do next is use one hand for the screwdriver and the other one to pinch it, the nut to hold it in place. So I'm squeezing with my left hand, and then I'm going to turn the screw with my right hand. Okay, and this just tightens it a little bit more so it stays on securely. So I'm pinching with my left hand on the nut to hold it in place, and then I'm going to screw with my right hand. Alright, for the next step we need our 4 motors still, and also our clear plate. With the clear plate, go ahead and find where it has 3 holes on one side, and you want to have that facing towards you. So I have the 3 holes on the plate facing toward me. What we're going to do is, from the same bag, from the motor bag, we're going to find the smaller screws that look like this here. And we're going to use these screws to mount the motors onto the plate. So I'm going to take my first motor, and I'll show you where these are going to go first. So there's holes on the plate. So these 2 holes are for one motor. There's 2 here, and also 2 at the bottom, and also 1 here. So each of these spots where we see the 2 holes together, that's going to be where one of the motors is going to go. Okay, so let's take our first motor, and this one is going to go into, on the right side, the one that's facing me. So right here. So it may be easier if you want to start by just putting your screws in. So I'll get the screw like that. We'll get one of them started. So I'm going to line this screw up with the first hole right here. And then you can flip it over if you need to. And then you just want to get that screwed in. If you notice when you try to do this that it's not screwing in very well, then you just want to double check to make sure that your threaded side is actually on the bottom here and you didn't accidentally leave it on the top. So one side is threaded, one side's not. So if you notice your screw is not going in very well, just double check to make sure you're screwing it into the threaded side. All right, let's go ahead and get our other screw in. Another thing to check is make sure your screw is lined up with the hole, so you may have to adjust it to the left or to the right with the motor until it lines up. Okay, that one looks good. So whenever you're flipping, just make sure when you put it back the right way that the 3 holes are still facing the front. Okay, let's take our next motor. This one's going to go right here. So I'll line up the holes and try to get one started first. Okay, so when you're all finished, you should still have 2 of the motors facing you, 2 of them facing away from you, with all the wires facing inward. Okay, for the next step, we need our H-bridge, which looks like this here. We need 4 of our 8mm screws, and then 4 spacers. If you're not sure what size the screw is, you can look on the bag, and it'll say M3 and then 8. So that would be an 8mm one. And you can also just take a ruler and measure it and see which one is 8mm. Okay, so what we're going to do is we're going to mount our H-bridge onto our plate. And we're going to do that. There's 4 holes in between the motors. And we're going to use our screws and our spacers to mount the H-board on top. So I'm going to take one of my 8mm screws. I'm going to push the screw up from the bottom. Taking the screw, push it up from the bottom. I'm going to take one of my spacers and then screw it on. And then just keep doing that for the other 3 holes. So screw from the bottom, and then a spacer. Okay, and that's what it should look like when it's done. So the screws are from the bottom, and then your spacers are on top. Okay, next we're going to take 4 of the 6mm screws from this bag right here. And we're going to place our H-bridge on top of our spacers. So my board, I have the 3 holes facing toward me, and the H-bridge will go on like this. So the large part on the H-bridge will be facing the back. Okay, so you just want to line up the holes on the H-bridge to the spacer holes, and then use one of the 6mm screws to screw it in place. All right, for this step, we're going to need 3 of our line tracking modules, 3 of the black spacers, and then 3 12mm screws, And we're also going to need 3 nuts as well. So all this comes from this bag right here. So let me go ahead and grab the other parts we need real quick. So we're also going to need 3 of the nuts. Okay, so these are going to be mounted at the front of our car. So where we see the 3 holes at the top. So first we're going to grab one of our screws. We're going to put it from the top to the bottom. We're going to grab one of our spacers next. We're going to put it on the screw. And then after that, we'll grab one of our line tracking modules. So facing down, it's going to go in the second hole. And then you can flip it over if you need to put the nut on the screw. Okay, when you're done, it should look like this. So this is the bottom of the car, and that would be the top. Okay, for the next step, we're going to need 6 of our cylinders, or our spacers, and 6 of these screws. So these are 10mm screws that come from this bag right here. Okay, these are going to go on the outside, so 1, 2, 3, and then 4, 5, 6. So you're going to take your screw, and from the bottom of the car going up, you're going to put the screw and then screw the spacer on top of it. Okay, and when you're done, it looks like this. And the next step, we're going to take our 4 wheels and attach them onto the motors. Okay, and when you're done, it should look like that. Okay, for the next step, you're going to put what we built so far. Just put it off to the side for now. For this step, we need our other base plate. We need our battery pack. We need 4 6mm screws. And then 4 of the nuts. The first thing you want to do is just slide off the cover for your battery pack. With my board, I have the slot where the servo motor is going to go facing me. And then these 4 holes on the back side are where the motor is going to mount to. So you're going to take your battery pack with the wires on the right hand side. You're going to get it lined up with the holes inside the battery pack. You're going to take one of your screws. It's going to go through the battery pack. And through the base plate. And then on the other side, you want to take one of the nuts and screw it onto the screw. Okay, and do the same thing for the other holes. And then to tighten up these 4 nuts right here, you want to pinch it with one of your hands and then screw it in with the other. So you're just pinching it so the nut doesn't move when you're screwing it in. Okay, when you're done, it should look like this. So wires on the right-hand side, this hole right here at the top, the smaller hole on the left-hand side. Okay, for this step, we're going to need part of the servo motor mounting system, this piece right here. We're going to need our servo motor, the piece that's going to go on the servo motor. We're going to need 3 of our 10mm screws, 3 nuts of this size, these screws right here, the 12mm that are skinnier, and then the real small nuts here. All right, so all these pieces, as far as the screws go, can be found in this bag right here. Okay, so the first thing we're going to do is we're going to take this piece right here. It's going to line up with these 3 holes on the top. Just like that. We're going to take one of our 10mm screws, put it through each of the holes. And then on the back side, we'll grab one of our nuts and screw it onto the screw. And just go ahead and repeat for the other 2 holes. Okay, next we're going to install the servo motor. To do that, we're going to take our servo motor, just like that. Next, we're going to take our little screws, Next, we're going to take this part right here, and we're going to put it on the servo motor where it's going horizontally left to right. And this is what it should look like when you're done. Okay, next we're going to be installing the infrared sensor, which looks like this right here. To do that, we're going to need the sensor, 2 of the black spacers, we're also going to need 2 of the small 12mm screws, and then 2 of the small nuts. Okay, these can all be found in this bag right here. Okay, so what we're going to do first is we're going to take our sensor. We're going to put one of the screws through one of the holes on the sensor. Next, we're going to take one of the spacers and we're going to put that on next. And then this is going to attach next to the servo motor up here. So it's going to go right in this hole right here. Just like that. And then let's go ahead and get okay, so the first thing we're going to do is take two of our black spacers and line them up on the holes next to the servo motor. Next, we're going to get our infrared sensor, and we're going to stick our screws through the two holes. And then what we're going to do is we're going to get the screws through the black spacers and also the hole on the board. And then holding the screws so they don't fall out, we're going to tip it over. And then we're going to get our nuts screwed on the screws. Okay, and then when you're done, it should look like this. Okay, next we're going to be attaching the ultrasonic sensor to its brace. So the ultrasonic sensor looks like this right here. This is what the back brace looks like. In addition to those, we're also going to need 4 of the black spacers. Four of the thin 12mm screws. And then 4 of the small nuts that go on the screws. Okay, so what we're going to do is we're going to grab one of our spacers. Okay, so what we're going to do is we're going to take our ultrasonic sensor and put the 4 screws in each of the holes on the ultrasonic sensor. Be careful when you're pushing the screws in that you don't push on the sensor part right here or over here. Okay, next we're going to get the 4 spacers on. And then we're going to lay the brace on top. And then we're going to work on getting the nuts on each of the screws. Okay, once you're finished, it should look like this here. Okay, next we're going to be mounting our ultrasonic sensor onto the servo motor. So it'll go on just like this. To do that, we're going to need our ultrasonic sensor attached to the back brace, and then 3 of these screws here that are found in the servo motor bag. Okay, the first thing we're going to do is take our ultrasonic sensor and we're going to get it lined up, and the first screw is going to go on this middle hole on the brace. So it's going to go through that hole right here and then into this hole on the servo motor. Okay, next we're going to put the screw on the farthest hole. And then the last screw will go on the other side. Okay, when you're finished, it should look like this here. So now the ultrasonic sensor is attached to the servo motor. Okay, for the next step, we're going to be mounting our Arduino board onto the base plate here. So we're going to need our Arduino board, 3 of our spacers, and then 6 of the 8mm screws. And these can all be found in this bag right here. Okay, so what we're going to do first is we're going to take one of our screws, and we're going to be putting this one in the hole that's closest to the ultrasonic sensor. We're going to be taking one of our spacers and screwing it on. Next, directly behind this one, we're going to put the other screw. And then screwing on a spacer. Next, directly across from this one is where we'll put the last screw. Okay, then we're going to take our Arduino board, and we're going to have the USB port facing to the right. Then you just want to get the holes on the Arduino matched up with the holes for the spacer, and then use your other screws to get it screwed in. Okay, and when you're finished, it should look like that. Okay, for the next step, we're going to attach our motor shield onto the Arduino. To do that, make sure this blue part right here is facing to the left. And then on the board here, we're going to skip the first 2 holes for this one up here, and also this one down here. So when we're going to attach these pins into the ports on the Arduino board, we want to make sure that we skip the first 2 on each set. Okay, and when you're done, it should look like this. You just want to double check to make sure that you didn't miss any of the pins into the holes and that you skipped the first two on this one and also on the back side. Okay, so now we're going to start wiring the robot. What I did first is I took the black wire from this motor and from this motor and put a little bit of electrical tape around it so that the wires stayed together. I did the same thing for the red wires. And then on the other side, I did the same thing. So I took the black wire from this one and then put a little bit of electrical tape on it, and also for the red ones too. So I already did one side of it. So what you're going to do is on these two parts right here and these over here, you're going to unscrew the screws. And then what you're going to do is you're going to insert the wires into the slot right here and then screw the screw to clamp the wire inside of the blue part here. So I did one side, and just as a point of reference, I have my line tracking modules on the front. So closest to this part back here, I have the black wire in this one, and then the red wire in this one. So I'm going to do the same thing on the other side. So you're going to insert the black wire into the one that's closest to the black piece over here. And then you just want to give the wires a gentle pull to make sure they're in there securely. And then next I'll attach the red ones. All right, and when you're done, that's what it should look like. So I got a black wire here from both the motors, red here, black, and then red. Okay, the next part we're going to wire, we're going to attach the battery source or the power source to the H bridge. To do that, you want to find these two wires from the battery pack. And then on the H bridge, in this grouping of three blue ones, the first one is the 12-volt power source, and then the second one is the ground. So we're going to put the red wire from the battery pack into this one, and then the black one into the second one. Then just a gentle pull, looks like it's in there. Okay, and when you're done, you should have the red one in the first hole, the black one in the second hole. And then we can make sure it's working if you insert the batteries. And turn the switch on. Then you should see a light up on your H bridge. Okay, so the next thing we're going to wire is we're going to attach wires to this front part up here. This section up here, next to the group of three. And the first thing we want to do is there's coverings for some of the pins. We just want to go ahead and take those off. So the covering for the pins looks like this. So there's one in each side, so just go ahead and pop off the other one. And then in the front section, you should have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 pins next to the group of three. Okay. You're going to need some jumper wires, which look like these here. You can use whatever colors you want to, but if you want to follow along with the video, I'm going to be using a red one, an orange one, a yellow one, green, blue, purple, and gray. Okay, on this side over here, which is the farthest 2 pins away from the group of 3, I'm going to put my red jumper wire on the top one. Next, I'm going to grab my orange jumper wire and put that directly below the red one. Next to the orange one, I'm going to put the yellow wire. Next to the yellow one will be the green wire. Next to the green one, I'm going to put the blue wire. After the blue one, it'll be purple. And then finally, the gray wire will go right next to the purple one. Okay, and what we're going to do with these wires is we're going to take our other piece and we're going to put it through the hole next to the battery pack. Just like that. Except I have it backwards. Okay, and the next thing we're going to do is we're going to grab all of our wires. And then we're going to stick it through the hole right next to the battery pack. Be careful not to pull these ones too tight because it'll pop off of the pins we just put it on. Okay, so when you're done, it should look like this. Okay, the next step, we're going to be mounting the upper layer to the bottom layer, like that. Before we do that though, there's a couple things we need to do. So the wire that's coming from the servo motor, we want to stick that through this hole right here and pull it through. And then when we're going to put it on top, we just want to make sure all the wires are out of the way. And then we're just going to get it lined up with the holes. And we're going to be using 10mm screws that come from this bag right here. Okay, and then we're just going to get all the things screwed in. So there should be 6 holes that we're screwing in. And don't screw them tight right away, just get them screwed in loosely. And then once we have them all in, then we'll screw it in tight. It just helps us to align the other holes better. All right, and now we'll just go back around and get everything tightened down. All right, and when you're done, it should look like this. Okay, so the next part of wiring we're going to do is we're going to attach the wires we just attached from the H-bridge onto the motor shield. So I'm going to start with the red wire. And the board has numbers on the bottom here. And it also has, going up and down, the letters G, V, and S. So when I'm referencing the wires, I'll say something like 2V, and that'll mean find the number 2, then the letter V, and then put it onto that pin. So for the red one, we're going to put that one on 2V. So I'm going to find 2, and then for the row, I'm going to look for V, and I'm going to put it right on that one. The next one will be the orange wire, and that's going to go on 3S. So find the number 3, then the letter S. The next wire will be yellow. This is going to go on 2S. The next wire will be the green one, and this will go on 4S. Following that will be the blue wire, and the blue wire will go on 5S. Next will be the gray wire. This one's going to go on 6S. And then finally, the purple wire will go on 7S. What we're going to do is take the wires from the servo motor, and this is going to go on to number 11. The brown is the ground wire, so we're going to put that one with the letter G. Just like that. So the brown wire should be in line with the letter G, red should be for V, and then S will be the orange wire. Okay, next we're going to be attaching wires to the ultrasonic sensor. For this, I'm going to be using a black wire, a red wire, orange, and green. I'm going to attach the black wire to the ground of the ultrasonic sensor. So the labels are on the front side, so ground is right here. Next, I'll be using the green wire for echo. Echo is right next to ground. I'll be using the orange wire for trig. And then finally the red wire for VCC. Okay, so now we're going to connect our wires to the board. So the black one will go into 12G. The green one will be onto 12S. The red one will be 13V. And finally, the orange one will be in 12S. Okay, and the last thing we're going to do is wire the line tracking modules on the bottom. So to do that, you're going to need 3 groups of 3. It doesn't really matter what the colors are. So on each one, they're labeled with G, V, and S. So just remember whatever color you put for G, V, and S, just remember what colors you use. So in this case, I'm going to put yellow for the ground. And then the orange one will be the voltage, and then S will be red. Okay, and then you'll just stick the wires through here. And then we're going to put this group on number 10. The yellow one was my ground, so I'll line that one up with the G. There we go. We'll flip it over and do it with the next one. Okay, so this time the white is going to be the ground. Then we'll stick it through. And this one will go on number 9. And one last one to do. All right, in this group, my blue is going to be the ground. And then these ones will go on number 8. All right, and when you're done, it should look like this. So what we did is we attached wires from our line tracking modules onto ports 8, 9, and 10.